Hi there, so welcome to this week's feedback session. So this week we've been looking at, we did a video about observation and drawing, and I talked about the importance of looking, and we talked about blind contour drawing as a perfect exercise for that in terms of continually looking at your subject and not looking at your drawing. So that was one of the exercises we talked about. And we also talked about this idea of looking, and I gave you the exercise with the matchsticks, which is all available on my channel. If you haven't seen those, I'll put the links below. And also I did a little talk about some of the materials I like to use. Anyway, so I'm really pleased to say I've had quite a lot of work handed in, so I may not be able to go through it all. But what I've done is I've tried to pick out some of the really nice examples where I can make a few points. Okay, so I hope you're not too disappointed if yours aren't up, but I've tried to include as many as possible. Okay, so I'm going to start here with Melanie sent me quite early in the week, sent me this picture of her hand. And I did actually get back to her because it highlighted one of the problems that can come up with blind contour drawing. So what I suggested to her was that if you notice the lines are quite straight, okay? There is a sense of some of the undulations of her fingers, and it is a nice drawing, but it's not quite the characteristic of blind contour drawing. It's more what I would call gesture drawing, and gesture is where you're making quick generalized statements to get the flow or the movement of a subject. Blind contour drawing is a much more sort of precise, slowed down examination of your subject. So I gave her a little bit of feedback early on, and she went back and she did come up with some new drawings. So let's have a look. And she's made a few notes there, which actually makes a quite nice graphic touch. So you can see instantly how this is more in keeping with what I had in mind. Now, again, it still looks to me possibly a little bit quick, but in particular, I would sort of draw attention to the thumb, and there's some marks there that relate to the fingernail. And from my experiences, those sorts of marks, they do come from observation. They're not the sort of thing that you would make up. It's those sort of unusual marks. And also, like, the width of the fingers is really nice, I think. It definitely has, it's a feeling of it being a hand, well, Melanie's hand, and not just a generic hand. So yeah, I really like that drawing. So I really like this. This is, again, very sort of characteristic of blind contour drawing. In the book I mentioned, Robert Kalpolis, he talks about how, as I say, he advocated doing about 100 hours of these drawings. And what he was saying is that what happens after a while is when you see these little undulations, they eventually become almost like characteristics of your work. You look for them and you sort of include them in a perhaps a less self-conscious way. We can start to see things like that. So, okay, so I'm just drawing on top, but we see that. That's actually the bone at the wrist, okay? And most people, if they were drawing hands, perhaps wouldn't observe that quite so nicely. In fact, even here, we're coming up, we can see this, that little undulation there. It actually is anatomically correct. There's a little sort of, it's almost the link between the wrist and the hand. So there are some really nice things happening there. If you know Egon Schiele's work, his work is very similar to this with the strong contour lines. And I say it's where first of all the little marks are due to observation, but eventually they take on almost like a sort of stylistic quality of your work if you stick with it. Anyway, so really like that. Okay, and then Lois sent this one in. Again, really nice contour drawing. So it's a little bit continuous line, which again is another sort of drawing approach, but that's fine. But again, there is some just nice, you know, there are some shapes there to do with the creases. The creases are the sorts of things that people would tend to either overlook or generalize. So yeah, I really like that. And again, nice sort of marks coming around the wrist. So it just has that look of good observation. So I really like that. And Lois sent in this other one, which again I really liked. So again, it's a sort of subject, it's almost like a nothingy subject. You look down at your feet, it's the sort of thing that you could draw every day, and yet she's, you know, it's turned into quite an interesting study. Just the little creases there, the feeling of this sort of cylinder. So, you know, this shape here, that actually represents like the foreshortening of the leg as it goes down away from you, and then the foot obviously being a bit smaller. So actually, if you deliberately tried to foreshorten the leg, it's quite a challenging thing to do. And yet here, just simply by, you know, good observation, we've sort of, you know, Lois has picked up quite a lot. So yeah, I really like that drawing. That's the sort of thing, you know, I would be encouraging you to keep going with. And then Alison sent this one in. Again, a really nice page. I like the variety. I quite like it as a sort of almost as a composition with all these diagonals. Again, what we can see if we look closely is we can see lots of little marks, okay? Lots of little sort of notches, and this again is very characteristic of when the exercise is being done properly. And so it's, you know, something I can sort of look for. And in fact, say even though maybe the proportions are wrong, the actual feel of the drawing is one of, you know, good observation. So well done, Alison. I really like that one. Okay, so I'm going to include also this this one by Jennifer, which again, it's a sort of, it looks like potentially quite an unpromising subject, and yet the quality of line actually makes for a really nice drawing, I think. And you know, who knows why that is? There are some corrections, and it's not instantly readable in terms of what we're looking at. And yet somehow, you know, I find that quite a pleasing drawing. I quite like the line quality. So that shows that the blind contour drawing actually generates a sort of a look of your drawings, which is really pleasant in itself. Okay, so that's some of the contour drawings that we sent in. And now I'm picking out some of the ones that relate to this act of looking. So seeing the marks between things. So I couldn't help, you know, mention this one by Clazine, which is, well, it's a really nice drawing. But if you get up close, you will notice that she's got these little dotted lines, okay? And there's a dotted line there and a dotted line to the end of the pencil. So she's starting to look at how things interrelate, how one mark relates to the other. And that's the application of the matchstick exercise that I was talking about. So there are the matches. Now she has actually drawn the matches really nicely. So, you know, you don't need to do that to practice the exercise. But, you know, it makes for a really nice page, I think. So, yeah, I thought that was a really nice, and, you know, we can see some nice shading coming on there. So we'll talk a bit about shading next week. But that was very good. Okay, another one by Alison Booth. So again, just really, I want to point out this sort of thing here. We can see, you know, these marks. This is all about seeing the relationships from one object to another, okay? And actually, even though the bottle remains unfinished, I think it still works as a nice study. So there's a bit of triangulation, you know, how does that line relate to the candlestick? And there's a little line there. So, and little lines rubbed out. So it has that feeling of really intense observation. And that's what I was saying about how once you get involved with your subject, it doesn't really even matter what it is. It's about looking at these relationships that makes for a good drawing. And this is another one of Alison's, which again I really liked because it has that feeling of something that's been laboured over. And I don't mean that in a sort of in a negative way, but it feels like there's corrections that have gone on, and it has that feeling of, some work has gone into it. Often when you draw, your first lines won't be correct, and especially when you're involved in this process of measuring your drawings and looking at negative spaces, these corrections are actually a sort of byproduct of that process of observation. So it's really nice to see those and see some of those marks emerge. So yeah, if you look for that, say artists, there are lots of artists that actually include these. They're almost ghosts of the observational process in their work, and it makes for a really nice sort of touch, I think. And we've got some of Teresa's work here. Again, very crisp, confident lines. And she's even sort of cut out the drawings, the photographs, so we can check how accurate she was. Which I've only just noticed, and yeah, on the face of it, looks pretty accurate to me. Okay, but yeah, some nice drawings there. Again, excellent exercise, one to dig out if you're bored, and you learn a lot, and it really sort of pays off when you come to draw from life. Okay, so the next section was I talked about using different materials, some of the media I like. So it was nice to see some of you experimenting a bit and just sort of mixing things up a bit. So this was Alison McNess, and I liked the use of the red. Ooh. Technology. Yeah, the use of the red for the worm. I think that makes for just makes it a bit more striking, and sort of brings a page to life. I don't know if you've ever seen like Japanese or Chinese brush artists often have just ink, black and white image, and then at the bottom they have a little red stamp maybe with their name, and that little touch of red can actually make a black and white drawing really sort of come to life. So yeah, I like that. Now you're going to have to forgive me because I haven't written down whose this was, but I did like it, so I've included it. Well, I liked all of them, so if I didn't include them, it's not because, but there's only so many. What I liked about this though was it's getting there in terms of stronger tonal contrast. Okay, the only thing I might just observe is if you have objects against a window, often the light coming through that window, unless you have sort of foliage, or often that light will be your primary light source, a bit like the sky. That normally means that the light that's on the objects, so like for example this object here, it normally won't be as light as the sky itself. So the way to take in those tonal values more effectively is to squint your eyes. Again, if you squint your eyes, it will just help you perceive the tone. But the fact is, it's a nice tonal study. There's some strong darks there, so that's excellent. And Judith sent these in. I like these because it's got the quality of a visual diary. So there's a few notes there, and there's a feeling of engagement and sort of interest. Maybe I would say that these are still slightly like objects in space, but I think that doesn't matter. And the fact is, we can see some nice sort of charcoal drawing there. There's a lively quality, so I like those, Judith. Thanks. And this is Lois again. So really nice studies here. I like there's some sort of cross hatching that helps describe the forms. There's a sense of observation and sort of patience in there, which I really like. And yeah, this picture of a sofa, another great example of how like the everyday can be transformed by observing it accurately. So yeah, really like that. That's great stuff. And here's another one from Maria Jose, and I love this one because it's the toned paper. It's still a drawing at heart, but the toned paper and a little bit of ink and wash has just elevated it and made for a really interesting sketch. So that sort of slightly sepia look creates the feeling of almost like a faded photograph. So I really like that. And nice use, it's good observational work with a sense of we're looking up at the building. So very nice there. And Stuart sent this in. Now I like the boat, but I think this study of a tap, I think really is an excellent drawing. Okay, it's difficult to say why exactly. I think the use of the white here really effectively describes the tiles in a three-dimensional way, and those strong darks and leaving the grey of the paper, we just get a very strong sense of chrome, the metal. There's a feeling of the texture there. So I think that's a really nice study there, Stuart. So that's good. I mean, I like the abandoned boat as well. So again, bringing in some of this white chalk helps to lift the pictures. So great work there. And then Teresa sent these in. So again, you can see how Teresa, she's very good at pushing her tonal values. So when you're going to put down darks, especially in a silhouetted scene like this, make the darks dark. Compressed charcoal, even pencil, if you push hard enough, you will get a bit more of a graphic impact. And then really this little study in the corner, there's a great variety of line. So from very thin lines to thick lines, very much evoking how nature is. It's very easy when you draw for everything to have the same weight and thickness. So yeah, picking out the lights of these silver birches and again, using some modelling on these forms. So again, very nice studies. And I say, next week I will talk a little bit more about tonal values and how to introduce light and dark. But yeah, that's great. And then lastly, I had to include this. This is Teresa did a little sketch of our Zoom meeting, which I hope no one minds. But again, great little example again of how the everyday that we're looking at can be an interesting subject. So you might be able to pick yourself out there. I've got a feeling I might be this one up in the top corner. And yeah, different formats. Again, there's a great variety from face to face. And yeah, I thought that was excellent. So yeah, so some great work there. I'm really pleased to see you engaging with some of the exercises I've set. So again, we're going on to tone next week, but don't feel that means that what we've covered, we have to, abandon that now. So keep up with your daily practice as much as possible. Keep trying to observe, sort of tune into, what's around you. Hopefully maybe seeing some of these drawings might give you some idea of how there are subjects, all around us. And yeah, just keep the momentum up. Anyway, so thanks a lot for that, and I'll look forward to seeing you on Monday. Thanks a lot then. Bye.